Grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and the repentant alike. I am Chief Sophia of the Americana Band of Indians, and this is another chapter to our introduction to daylight astrology. In this video, we are going to look a little bit closer at the cycle between Saturn and Jupiter from the perspective of light to light cycle as opposed to the conjunction to conjunction cycle. In the previous video I made, I was talking about this and I realized that some visuals might help also with a actual explanation or an example in real life that people can refer to that will help make sense of what I'm saying. So, as a reminder, this is correct. The way that the quote unquote dark magicians or just magicians in general do their magic is from conjunction to conjunction. And what is this? You have a conjunction, that's the start of your cycle. Then you have a square, that's like a little fight. Then you have a trine, everything's going well. Then you have an opposition, and opposition is, maybe a big blowout. And then you have another trine where you try to, re-establish your relationship. Then you have a little small or maybe a big blowout, that's another square, and then you have another conjunction because you've gone on to start a new relationship with another person, or you reconciled with this person even though this relationship is totally out of whack and it's literally you're walking on eggshells. This particular cycle, when it's done like that, this dark to dark, you're walking on eggshells because you never know what that thing is that you're going to do that's going to set this person off, or they don't know it about you or whatever. It's a very chaotic relationship if we're talking about it in terms of relationships. The cycle that I propose we use, and I will show that it's already in place, is the opposition to opposition. The opposition to opposition cycle is you and your partner both come in your full power. Then you trine, meaning you start to have a conversation, you get to know each other. Then you square, you check in, you say, hey, would you like to go out? Would you like to exchange numbers? Would you like to spend some more time together? Okay. Then you have a conjunction where you go on a date, you talk on the phone, you whatever, get to know each other better. Then you have another square, which is a check-in, like how, do you think that this is going to work? Do we seem compatible? It's a nice conversation that flows. And then based on if it's a yes, then you have a trine, which is a nice flowing energy leading to your next opposition. And your opposition is not you opposing the person. It's now you're in your full power and that person is in their full power, and you both are comfortable in the fact that you are in this relationship or whatever. It doesn't have to have a title. Friendship could be just platonic. You are okay because you're in your full power and you're not diminishing that person, and that person is in their full power. That is a healthy relationship. We have to find a way to educate the young people on how healthy relationships are supposed to go. And this is the cycle. Now, I wanted to make a visual of what this looks like if you're looking at a cycle. Like if you're just looking at it. This is the dark moon to the dark moon cycle. I want you to notice that, let's say we start the cycle with the conjunction. That means that's starting the cycle when the sun is rising. Okay, so the sunlight is out, it's bright, it's exposing all the stuff. And then when you get to the opposition, which is at the 3 o'clock position, then you are still trining squares, the same way we discussed before, except the opposition is in the light and the conjunction is in the light and the opposition is in the darkness. Okay, this cycle is like people who fast during the day. This is against the circadian rhythm. Proper fasting is supposed to be done at night in the darkness when everything is resting. That's when you should also rest your internal organs. This is why people who work overnights, weird hours, all that kind of stuff, they have lots of problems because really at night is when you should be resting your body. And in the daytime, you should be eating with the sun so that the sun can assist you with dealing with the digestion of whatever it is you have consumed. This is why when you eat really late at night, you don't sleep well, you have all of these problems. All of this stuff has to deal with people who fast during the day. Now, what are other reasons why you can fast during the day? Well, if you have to work and you don't take a break and all this stuff, and then the only time you get a chance to eat is when you get home and settle down, and basically it's 7 or 8 o'clock, that's also unhealthy. And it's not because you deliberately fasted during the day, but because you're so busy, all of this, all of that, you neglected to feed your cells while the sun was out. So by the time you got to the nighttime, that's when you're eating for the first time of day. That's an unintentional fast or force, depending on what it is. This is why our people need to we don't have to work a lot because we know that we have to prioritize making sure that we eat with the sun and whatever that means. And that's, anyway, I won't go into too much about that. Just understand that that's what this cycle is. This cycle is people who fast during the day. Now, the opposite, the cycle I propose, is the people who fast at night. So the wheel didn't change. Nothing on the wheel changed. It's exactly the same. The cycle moves exactly the same. The positions are exactly the same. Where you start your cycle is what different. So when you start your cycle with the opposition, which is at the 3 o'clock position, that's when the sun is just coming up. The sun is coming up. It's dawn, okay, at this 3 o'clock position. And what? The trine, the square, the sextile, the opposition. The conjunction. When you get to the conjunction, that's your 9 o'clock position at night. And what? It's dark. So your conjunction happens in the privacy of your home instead of out there all in the public so everybody can see it. That's what this is. This is your conjunction, so everybody is in the middle of your business, what you're doing in your private conjunction. Here, your conjunction is in the dark, so no one is in your business when you have your conjunction. The chaos happens in the darkness where it's supposed to. There is no creation without darkness, but you don't want to create, which is what a conjunction is. It's the creation point. You don't want to create in the light. You can't create in the light. You can't create while you are being observed. What is that? Oh, maybe it's close. You can't create while you're being observed, while you're being watched, hounded down. It's like performance anxiety. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people have this problem where they can't perform in some people who don't have a problem with this either way, but most people can't perform when somebody is looking at them. This is why standardized testing is so bad. It's going to a private moment in your mind where you're trying to, pull information out to answer questions, but it puts it on a timer. It puts it out there so everybody can see. You look around, everybody's taking the test. Some people seem to be, it's a whole performance anxiety thing, which is, one of the things that I was looking for when my kids, I was choosing a physical school for my kids to go to, was that they didn't have to take a bunch of standardized tests. If you have to do it once, you need to know how to do it. I understand, but standardized testing every year, making it awful on these kids, no, it's unnecessary. No, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in torturing my children with standardized testing. And that's basically what you do if you follow this dark moon to dark moon cycle. Your Your oppositions or your conjunctions are in the light so everybody can see. Your conjunctions are up for evaluation by the crowd. Whereas on the full moon, or the light, I mean, I said full, it should be light moon. On the light moon to light moon cycle, your conjunctions are private. The time when you're fasting is a private time because what? You're asleep. You're at home in your bed asleep. Instead of being out in the public where everyone can see it. So as you can see, these cycles, they look the same, but the thought process is totally different. And I hope that this makes sense. So let's take a look at a real life example of this cycle. I know this is kind of small, but this is the best that I can do because I want to make a point. I'm going to point out the conjunctions on here. So this is the Jupiter Saturn cycle. This cycle, this particular image is a cycle that I started with the conjunction. So I'm going to take some notes. Hold on. Let me see if I can move this without destroying what you see on the screen. All right. So this started with a conjunction. This conjunction here is oh, that's not right. Let's change this to a pencil. Let's change this to a small pencil. This is a conjunction right here, and that's 1980. Then this cycle conjuncts again. Here we go in 2000, right? And this cycle conjuncts again in 2020. Okay. Now, hold on, let me pull out my notes. So this is going from conjunction to conjunction. So if we conjuncted, where are my notes? Okay, here we go. So if we conjuncted in 1980 from, that was the start of the cycle, right? What happened in 1980? I'm sorry, y'all. I have notes in 3 places. I just realized that I don't know what point I was going to make about 1980. Where are the notes for that? That would be helpful. Okay. It starts with the conjunction in 1980. In 1980, oh, that's when we had the real. They started this with a financial crisis. All right. So we're looking at this cycle for America, okay, just to be specific. Then we had a conjunction, but as you can see, it was 5 conjunctions, right? So this is the conjunction. We had 5. All right. The first one being in 1989. In 1989, this cycle was the war on drugs. Okay. Then we had the square. We're not looking at that. We had the next conjunction. That was in 2000. This started a war on terror. Which had a major inflection point on 9/11, which, as you can see, there's no more interactions until after 9/11. So this time we know that was a seed that they planted in 2000. This war on terror. Okay. Then, in 2010, we have, here we go. 2010. Our next set of oppositions. This was the war on guns, right? And that was Sandy Hook happened that year. I got several cycles here. Sandy Hook happened that year. Um, where's my notes on this? I know I took notes. Okay, well, for sure, Sandy Hook happened in that time period. Okay, I'm just not gonna relitigate this right now. Okay, and then the next opposition or the next conjunction in 2020. This was supposed to start a race war. All right. Now, if you follow this cycle from 1980, from conjunction to conjunction, from 1980 to 2000, the financial crisis and the war on drugs was all rolled up together. I would say all of 1980 to 2000 was a financial crisis, which peaked with the war on drugs. Because what were they doing with the war on drugs? They were trafficking drugs through black communities. So the financial crisis started. Their solution was a war, but it wasn't a war on the outside. It was a war on the inside. All right, this was the problem, and this was their solution. Now, in 2000, they had another problem with still a financial crisis. It's just now we have this war on terror because somewhere around then, in that time period, that the Oklahoma City bombing and all these other things, right? So they started up on this war on terror, and their solution was a war on guns, which primarily affected black communities. Now, mind you, the FBI, all these people was dropping guns in the community. So how they can act like it was our fault when they were literally using our communities to traffic guns? This was their solution. This was their problem. And this was their solution. Here they did it again. This was their solution. Now, they tried to start the race war, right? Or war on race. Let's actually war on race is probably way more accurate. War on race. Okay? And since 2020, what have they been doing? Nothing but trying to foment this war on race. Now, the seeds of this were planted because this is now let's look at the squares. The squares for this happened in 2015, the first square, and this would be the whole Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, whatever, right? So they fomented this next stage with the square. Okay? The next conjunction. They fomented the next conjunction with the square. Same here. 2005, the square, let me write this. 2005 was this is when the financial crisis really got started. I mean the subprime, let's call it the stock market crash. I could call it many things. And in 2005, Obama hadn't been elected. He was still he had just become the senator from Illinois. Okay, so let's look at our next square. Now, this one in 1995 is really interesting because it's only one. All the rest of these squares, there's more than, well, actually, no, this one too is only one square in 1986. So the squares in this case were not as powerful, right? in 1995. So in 1995, we're going to look at what they did. Let's just look. What was going on in 95? Sometimes I have this stuff written down and sometimes I don't. I'm not sure I have 95 written down. Let me see. Oh, I don't even need to look. 95, they gave us Bill Clinton. And what did they say? Bill Clinton is the first black president, right? So, Bill, Bill Clinton also was involved with a lot of like Kosovo and all the other terror stuff that was happening overseas. Bill Clinton funded a lot of it, and Hillary. So in order to give us the war on terror, they had to arm the terrorists. Okay, that's what they did. They gave us Bill Clinton. He armed the terrorists. Oh Lord. So in 1986, oh yep, here we go. We have a financial crisis. The thing that they gave us with the square in 1986 was a crack epidemic. Right? And that led to the war on drugs. Now, in this situation, the trines should be let's just delineate these. This is one whole cycle, okay? One whole cycle. All right. So in this situation, the trines, which we have 3 sets of trines, right? Let me clean this up a little bit. Let's take out these notes. Okay. Let me clean this up a little bit. So we have the financial crisis, the war on terror, we had the war on guns. All right, let me add a square here because this is a square. All right, and we had the race war. This is what they're trying to do. This is their cycle. Now, mind you, this is a dark to dark. What is that? Okay, I'm not gonna fix it. This is a dark to dark cycle. All right, so now let's look at the trines. We got 4 trines on the screen. We got 5, literally 5 trines in this one cycle. We got the first one is in, this one is 2007. Now, trine energy is the energy that flows. This is supposed to be, the first one is 2013. This is supposed to be when, oh, I forgot about this conjunction right here. All right. So this one was 93. I might have to look up 93. And this one right here is 87. I might gotta look those 2 up. So let's start with 1987. So if you guys don't like research, you know, y'all can come back in a few minutes, but this is how I do my research. It just takes forever. I just really want to get through it. Let's see what happened in 1987. We're gonna get the drop here. This would have been May of 1987. That was the first one. Let's look. Dang. Let's see what happened in 1987. Oh shoot. Oh my goodness. I forgot what happened. I knew it was something. 1987 was the Iran Contra. Wow. Let's see what happened in, what is that? May of 1987? Or actually, let's see. When did this end? The last trine was March of 88. Let's look at March of 88. But that was Iran Contra. Lord have mercy. Let me look at 1988. Let's just see. Oh gosh. Please don't tell me their solution was to give us Herbert Daddy Bush, because that would be crazy. I think that was their solution. Who won the election in 88? Y'all, this is about to be crazy. Every time I look this stuff up, it's so crazy. Who won the election? Their solution in 1988 was to give us Daddy Bush. That was their solution. Okay, listen. I'm just looking this up. There's no... Okay, so they have a financial crisis in 1980. Their solution was to give us the crack epidemic. And to help that be pushed to its fullness, they gave us Daddy Bush. And that ended up with the war on drugs in 89. I can't make this up. This is crazy. Look, what happened in 93? Was it the last one was in 94? Let's look at 94. Y'all, I'm tired already. I can't. Every time I do this stuff happens. But wait till you see the other side of this. It's going to be great. So in 94, they had the World Cup here. Oh my gosh. So in 94, they gave us the World Cup. That was it here? Hold on. Was the World Cup here? Where was it? It was in U.S. So they gave us the World Cup. So in 94, they gave us the World Cup. So they have a war on drugs. So in 94, they bring the United States the World Cup. And all these drug people from the entire world come to America. Which leads us to the harsh aspect that's bringing in Bill Clinton and his arms, which sets us up for the war on terror. I just can't believe. Oh my gosh, I know what 2008 was. That was Obama. They give us a person. 2008, that was Obama. 2013, let me see what 2013 was. Y'all, I just don't even understand. This seems like insane to me. Oh my gosh. They had the war on guns. So what did they give us? They gave us the Boston Marathon bombing. And also Pope Francis. All right. Let's look at this timeline. All right. Now, this is if you go from conjunction to conjunction. In 1980 was a financial crisis. Their, checking their way to check the financial crisis, which is a square. Let me write that down. square. Remember, squares are the nature of Saturn. Uare. Why did I write the whole thing out? Hold on. Square is Saturn. Trine is Jupiter. All right. So they had this conjunction, but now this is the conjunction cycle between Jupiter and Saturn. That's why we're talking about specifically Jupiter and Saturn. In 1980, they have a conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn. They foment this financial crisis. Then in 1986, they using the energy of Saturn, they bring in the crack epidemic. They get black people running crack in the neighborhoods. And then as to bring it to back up their financial crisis, they bring in Daddy Bush under Jupiter energy so that he would expand. Then the next major event was this opposition, and there's five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 oppositions. They use those 5 oppositions as negative aspects to make Saturn and Jupiter fight against each other for the war on drugs, which is basically this financial crisis against this very harsh, read my lips, no new taxes, that kind of very corporeal energy. So they bring the abundance into direct conflict with the taskmaster, with the overseer, with the rule maker. They bring the abundance into opposition with the rule maker using this war on drugs. Then there's a trine energy, which they use to and then in the name of Jupiter, they support this war on drugs by having a World Cup in America, where all of these people come to America and play their football. You have all of these people pouring into America, And then after that, to enforce the Saturn energy, they bring in Bill Clinton, who is running arms. Now, mind you, their problem is a financial crisis. Way back up there, we have the financial crisis. And so they bring in Bill Clinton as a way to end the financial crisis with what? A war on terror. That's what happened in 2000. Bill Clinton coming in 95 is absolutely the background to the war on terror in 2000. Daddy Bush on the Jupiter side, and Jupiter being money, and we know that Daddy Bush financed a lot of these, especially he had a whole Anyway, we're not going to relitigate history right now all around. I'm just making the point. 95, what? Bill Clinton comes in and he supports this whole thing. And so now we have, because it's an arms thing. They're doing a lot of arms, okay? 2000, which leads right up to the war on terror, right? That was their main thing for 2000, the war on terror. What happens next? Well, in 2005, you have a stock market crash. Then, in the name of Jupiter energy, they bring in Obama to increase the message, the words of Obama. Now, Hillary was supposed to win, and that was supposed to be a female, but that's not what happened. Obama came in, right? So then in 2010, what happened? They had this war on guns. That was what they did with the opposition energy. It wasn't as powerful though as the war on drugs energy, because there's only 3 oppositions. So in 2013, what did they do to support this war on guns? Was this Boston Marathon incident that happened, right? I think Sandy Hook also happened that year. Maybe it might have been I don't remember. One of these years Sandy Hook happened. I think it was 2010 actually. Yeah, I think it was 2010. Okay. And then after that, 2015 is the final square. What do? They're fomenting their next conjunction by having all of these Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, all of these different young black men. They martyred them in the streets so that they could start their next cycle, which was a war on race. So if you're following their magic, from conjunction to conjunction, you could clearly see how it worked. Right? This is how they do their magic. They're doing it from conjunction to conjunction. Unfortunately for them, it don't work like this anymore. Because once we discovered there was another way to do it, now the story can be rewritten. And guess what? It doesn't even require new history. All you have to do is tell the story in a different order. So that's what we're about to do now. Let's tell this story in a different order. Now remember, square is Saturn. This should be faster. Trines are Jupiter. And we're looking at the Saturn-Jupiter cycle. So in this cycle, we start with the conjunction in 1989. Or not the conjunction, I'm sorry. We start with the opposition in 1989. Now, what did we say for 1989? That was the war on drugs, okay? This is going to go much faster. Then we have trine energy. That's 94 or 93. 1993. And what did I say about that? Oh, we have the World Cup. All right. And then we have a square, one lone square in 1995. That was when Bill Clinton came in. I'm telling y'all, we don't need new history. All we have to do is tell the story in a different order. And then we have a conjunction here. And that is in 2000. And that's the War on Terror. Then we have some squares here. And the squares, what year is that? 2005. And that's a stock market crash. Right? Then we have trines here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trines. Where'd I put these trines at? 2008, that's when we had Obama. Then we have our first opposition when the cycle ended. That is 2011. What happened in 2011 or 2010? That's the war on guns, which I think was Sandy Hook. Right? Okay, then we have our trine, which is 2015. And that was Mike Brown. Right? And then we have our squares in 2016. What did I say that was? Oh, I did 2013. No, oh, wait, I got it backwards. All right. The trines were not 2015. I'm sorry. The trines were 2013. That was Mike Brown. Now, in 2016, here's when we get to a different point. Oh, no, it was a Boston. Oh, my gosh. I still got it wrong. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm going to get this right. Now, 2016 is different because here we get Trump. Okay? Yes, the Mike Brown and all that stuff was going on. But then you had Trump. Now, this was a pattern interrupt because it was Trump on one hand, and then um you had Mike Brown on the other hand, right? But you had Trump. It was a pattern interrupt. And then we have our conjunction in 2020, which is why I use Trump. Because in 2020 on here, on this cycle, they're supposed to have the war on race, but what we ended up with was COVID. Right? We ended up with COVID. They couldn't start their war on race because we ended up with COVID. All right? Now, here we are again with these squares. The last square is on Sunday, so 2025. We don't know what it's going to be yet. But look how different the story is when you tell the story like this. So let's tell the story like this. And then this cycle ends. Let me just go ahead and finish it out in 2030. This cycle ends in 2030. Now let's tell this story from the perspective of opposition to opposition. In 1989, they had the war on drugs, okay? That was their thing that was going on. In 1993, we had the World Cup, which, because it's Jupiter, basically expanded, or in this position, the World Cup inflamed the war on drugs, but it inflamed it by showing it off to the world what was really happening in America. Because if you know kind of how the media was going, they were portraying America like everything was cool in America. They was really trying to play down that war on drugs. But when you had the whole world coming to America for the World Cup and then for the Olympics, they couldn't pretend like what was going on was good or normal or healthy or anything like that. The whole narrative was falling apart. And because these people are delusional on top of everything else, they couldn't see that as far back as 1989, their story, the way that they tell the story has been falling apart. Because by exposing to the world what was happening in the black communities, because mind you, the war on drugs was going on. Let's do a counter narrative. Let's do a counter narrative all the way around. The war on drugs was going on, but also rap music was getting really popular. And so you heard black people telling about what was going on in their communities and stuff like that. And that stuff was getting played all around the world. So yeah, you had the war on drugs, but the war on drugs also fueled the advancement of rap music. Okay, so we're telling a counter narrative. Then 1993, you have the World Cup, and you also have, like I said, the exposing our communities. Now, what's happening in Black America is on everybody's TV. Everybody can see what's going on in. I think there was a big protest that year too. In '93, was that the Rodney King? Hold on, was that Rodney King? Come on, notes. Come on, notes. I think that was Rodney King. One of them riots. Something everybody could see. I'm sorry if that made a sound. It was something everybody could see. I'm telling you. It was something. If you remember, put it in the comments. Let me just look it up. I don't have it written down. Nope, I don't have it written down. I do believe that was a Rodney King riot. What year was that? Let's go back to 93. I see that Escobar was killed. They was blaming him for bringing all the stuff in. Um, I'm just looking, you guys. I maybe it wasn't 93. Oh, they had the World Trade Center bombing too. There's a lot of bombings in 93. Oh, Waco. Jeez. Yeah, Waco was a huge setback because that was some of that stuff didn't make no sense. All right, y'all. Maybe it wasn't. I feel like there was some kind of riots or something. Um, I'm just taking a look. We're looking to see what's happening. Lord, it's always something. I'm just trying to see. No, it wasn't what's the name? But NAFTA. NAFTA also was in 93 too. Yeah. All right. So NAFTA was in 93 too. All right. So 95 was when Bill Clinton was doing his thing. Right? All right. So, okay, let's go. We have the war on drugs, which brings about rap music. Then in 93, they have Waco, right? But basically our communities are being exposed, right? There's this whole thing. Then 95, Bill Clinton is doing his thing, embarrassing us after having been called the first one of us, okay? And then in 2005, you have this stock market crash. That's followed by, in 2000, you have the war on terror, right? So they setting up the war on terror. They have all these crazy bombings and all this stuff. But the war on terror is the midpoint. Remember, this when you're looking at this is the midpoint. So from the conjunction until the midpoint, when you're looking at it like this is what's being done in the light. When you get to the midpoint, the war on terror, the war on terror in 2000, that's what's being done in the dark. That starts the part of the cycle where you would hypothetically be fasting. So their war on terror, their stock market crash, putting Obama in, none of that stuff had any validity. But guess what? The war on drugs and the war on guns, basically the war on drugs ended with the war on guns. So it makes a difference because when you have the cycle like the way they have it, the financial crisis ended with the war on terror, right? The reason why the narrative isn't working, because if your cycle ended with the war on terror and not the war on guns, the war on terror is more like it's the whole planet, you know what I mean? And the war on guns was really like, I mean, it's everywhere, but it was really aimed at America at this time. It was a tax on us. But as you can see, the narrative ain't going where it wants to, because now we're in 2011 and we haven't gotten, by the time the reason why it matters is, as at the height of the war on drugs in 1989, it faded out. What you start the cycle with, by the time it gets to the dark, it's going to fade out. So we started with the war on guns. In 2020, we had the conjunction. Everybody was buying guns. Everybody was buying guns. It was it was okay. Like imagine the war on drugs started with in 1989, and by 2000 everybody was doing drugs. Marijuana was becoming what more mainstream. So it's working in the opposite. When you're working from full power to full power and you identify something as a problem, by the time that cycle ends, the problem is going to be resolved. In the case of the war on drugs, it never should have been a war. That never should have happened, because our healing modalities, as I've said many times, have nothing to do with these people. They need to keep their hands off our healing modalities, whichever ones we choose to use. It's not up to them. They need to keep their hands off of it. And that's what happened. By the time 2011 came in, marijuana was legal almost everywhere. They was making all kinds of stuff legal that shouldn't be legal by the time, because that's how the cycle works. What you identify as your problem, by the time you finish the cycle, that problem's going to be away. When you start your cycle like this, with the financial crisis, by the time they got to 2000, the financial crisis, not only was it still raging, their solution to the financial crisis was a war. And they had the war on terror. 9/11 happened right after this conjunction. That's literally how they solve the problem. Because when you go from darkness to darkness, it's on you. You are God. So basically, you got to solve the problem. When you go from opposition to opposition, you identify the problem and you say, okay, creator, how do we solve this problem? What did they do? They said, okay, this is the problem, this war on drugs. So what did they do to solve the problem? Well, some drugs are readily available now that are used as healing modalities for other drugs that people should have never been taking. That was the solution. And it was embedded in the problem. So if the war is on, they have a war on guns. By the time 2030 comes around, the solution is everyone will have a gun. And it will be safe and it'll be easy and all of that stuff. That's going to be the solution, because it is a solution. Everyone should be able to defend themselves. So the solution is embedded in the problem. The reason why we're so far ahead of this right now, we have an opportunity in 2030 to identify the problem. So now we need to be thinking collectively as a community, what is the problem that we need to solve in 2030? Because at the midway point, which is in 2020, in this cycle, COVID came about. And what happened was, let me go back to black. What happened was COVID came around and people started to question. I wrote a money sign. Lord have mercy, y'all. People started to question the authority. Right? So the problem was the war on guns. And by the midpoint, we were questioning the authority. Everyone was, because everyone was sitting at home. You had nothing to do but to say, are these people real? Like, is this really how we solve this problem? That's what happened. So by the time we have a square, we're done with the squares. I pretty much know what that is, but we'll talk about that in a few months. And then by the time 2030 comes around, that war on guns problem is going to be solved. Just like by the time we got to 2011, the war on drugs was solved. The problems, the targets were identified. Things were being taken care of. Things were being put around. When you observe, again, we didn't change any history here. We use almost the same exact stuff. But it's the way that you read the cycle. If you read the cycle from darkness to darkness, it looks like they're in charge. But when you read the cycle from light to light, you can see that by the time, like right now, the light was from 2011 up to 2020. Now we're operating in the darkness. We're building roots. We're building roots from now all the way until 2030. We're building roots. So When I say you got to get your, don't let your enemies calculate your feast days. You need to get into whatever cycle. You need to do all your spiritual work, whatever it is, because whatever the problem is going to be in 2030 with this opposition in 20 these it's three. Actually, I think it's five oppositions in 2030. I wrote it down, but I think I only got three on here. I know it's five. It's five oppositions in 2030. Yeah. The last one is in 2031. It's five oppositions. When we have a set of five oppositions, that is really, really powerful. I just noticed as I was looking at all the oppositions. So, but in their mind, right, they're running this war on race. They're running this war on race. That's what they believe they fomented in 2020. And you can see that's what they're acting on. They're acting like they started a war on race in 2020. And they're following the cycle of their war on race. But they don't understand we have a whole different cycle here. And in 2020 was the question authority part, where you say, wait a minute, are these people telling us the truth? Have they been honest with us with how this stuff is going on? People started asking the questions. So we didn't, again, there's no new, we didn't get new information. We didn't do new stuff. All we did is look at it as a different cycle. So when we get to 2030, now we have a trine coming up. Oh, okay, good. We have a trine coming up. I'm sorry, I forgot to put that in here. We do have a trine coming up, right? Next year, 2026 and 2027. So we don't know what that's going to be either. And in 2030, we don't know what 2030 is going to be, but we can start thinking about it, because what we put out there is what is going to manifest. They don't understand this cycle. We understand it because what was the first thing I said? We have to fast with the sun. I mean, we have to eat with the sun. Why would we go against the circadian rhythm? So just by getting into alignment with the circadian rhythm, just with fasting, something as small and everyday as that, has opened up the possibility and the understanding of another way to run this cycle. And we can get ahead of it. And nobody's talking about it like this. I hope more people will now, but we have to go from light to light. If we go from light to light, we're going to be successful. So what is my prediction for these squares of 2025? Well, if in 2020 we question authority, in 2025 we lost all respect for the authority. So hopefully in 2026 and 2027, the authority will be removed. Let me write this down here. Remove authority. That lied. That's what I hope comes from these squares. I hope that from the squares, I hope that everyone loses respect in these authorities. In 2026 and 2027, we need to remove the authorities that lied. And 2030, we need a war on gatekeepers. We need a war on gatekeepers. They got to go. That's what I'm predicting for 2030, a war on gatekeepers. Whatever few gatekeepers are still holding power will have to be removed from wherever they are. We have a war on gatekeepers. To go from a war on guns to a war on gatekeepers, that's way more righteous. I mean, we'll see if that's what it is, but that's my prediction. That's what I feel. So I hope this explanation has been helpful. So again, this is why we track cycles from full moon to full moon. It's not that we don't use the new moon to new moon cycle, but we definitely not going to use new moon in one sign to new moon in the next sign as a measure of a cycle. And ideally, what we do is full moon in one side, new moon in one sign as the midpoint, and then to the next full moon as a hybrid cycle. So I hope this makes sense. I hope you all understand this a little bit better. I know it's kind of confusing, and we'll look at other cycles, but this one is really important to understand because we have an opportunity to get ahead of it. This 2025 cycle, this square, we couldn't really get ahead of it. But for 2026 and 2027, yeah, we can get ahead of that. That's a trine energy. That's a flowing energy. So we have all the opportunities in the world to get ahead of that cycle energetically. And then by 2030, we can declare the war. Because it's always going to be a war on something when it's an opposition. But you want it to be a war on something that actually can be solved. Not a war on something that is a boondoggle. Like war on drugs is a boondoggle, except for to remove the bad players who are actually creating the war on drugs. That's the only way to solve that problem. Same thing with the war on guns. That's a boondoggle. How are you gonna have a war on something that you use to protect yourself? That's literally saying I want to battle what is supposed to protect me. That's crazy. If Archangel Michael is seen with a sword, you mean to tell me he don't have a gun? Like, I just want y'all to think about this. But this is what they wanted us to be battling against. They wanted us to battle against our protection. Really, that was a war on protection. Our protection. It wasn't a war on drugs. It was a war on our healing modalities. It was a war on us. Now we're saying, no, we want a war on those people who hold the gates. Those keepers of the gates. And now we in front of the cycle. So again, I hope this makes sense. I hope you all like this kind of content. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. I don't think people like this kind of stuff, but don't matter because it's for me. Shalom, and we'll see you in the next video.